friends! Welcome to this episode of Yarny Heart Fiber Art. My name is Jess. You can find me on Instagram at yarnyheart, and this is a show where I talk about all the yarny things that I've been up to. Now before we get started, you've probably noticed that I did finally get a new camera. I did buy a camera with my work bonus this year, and I'm super happy with the upgrade. The camera that I had been using before, I got while I was in high school, so it's really old, really outdated, and I'm really happy to be filming with some new equipment. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the yarn. So let's start off with what I'm wearing. This is my one and only finished object that I'm sharing this episode, but I'm really proud of it and I really wanted to show it off. If you're following me on Instagram, I did post about this a little bit ago, but this is my Between Petals Pullover by Petals. And I've shared my progress on this sweater a couple times in the past few episodes. I believe in the last episode that I did, all I had left was one sleeve to do, but now it is fully finished and I'm so in love with it. I wear it so many times. I've worn it at least once a week for the past few weeks that it's been finished, and it is definitely probably my favorite sweater to date that I have completed. So this pattern is the Between Petals Pullover by Petals, who's also, I believe, Teti's Knit Garden on both YouTube and Instagram. The yarn that I used for this sweater is Mayak Tibetan Cloud DK. It is a 100% Tibetan Highland wool, and it's really, really soft. I feel like this is probably the softest wool that I've worked with in terms of sweater garments. And so I definitely think that I will be using it again when I do color work in the future. It's got a really nice tooth to it, and so it is really good at keeping all of the color work and the yoke and everything nice and crisp and kind of sticking together, melding together a little bit. And it's very super soft, pretty warm, I would say too, but also not too warm. It is, I believe, a woolen spun yarn, and so it does have those nice little air pockets. But what I found while wearing this sweater, and I will preface this by saying that I do live in California, so it does not get extremely cold out here. But while I've been wearing it about in some of the colder days, I do feel a little bit drafty in this sweater. I definitely, on a colder day, I can't be wearing it by itself. I do need to put a jacket over it. But I think that might also be more due to the construction or the shape of the sweater more so than the yarn itself, because I'll put some bee footage wherever there's space on the screen. I'll put some bee footage of me wearing it, but you will probably notice that it is quite cropped, and so I do feel like a lot of the draftiness comes from just the higher hemline, which is fine. I'm completely okay with it because, as I've mentioned in previous episodes of the podcast, I'm kind of finding more that I like that cropped length better than sweaters that are kind of a full length. So definitely a fine trade-off. I usually get pretty hot and sweaty anyway, and like I said, it doesn't get that cold out here, so definitely okay with that. The yarn that I used, the Tibetan Cloud DK, the purple colorway is called Passiflora and the green colorway is called Artemisia. I think it's supposed to be like Artemis, but then not. I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but it's two beautiful colors. It's kind of this really nice sage green and then this more like plum purple kind of color. You might remember, but I had some reservations about my color choices just because I have been making a lot of purple garments recently. However, after completing it and wearing it so much, I no longer have those reservations. I'm very glad that I chose the colors that I did. However, the next colorwork garment that I make, I definitely do want to branch out of my comfort zone a little and choose something a little more daring color palette wise. I did knit the size 5, and with the size 5, I used just over 3 skeins of the main color, Passiflora. I bought 4 just so that I wouldn't be flirting with Yarn Chicken. However, and I believe that the yardage that was specified in the pattern, it did say mathematically that I would need four skeins. However, I only barely dipped into my fourth skein. Like, I'm glad that I bought it because I did use a little bit of it, but this is almost a full skein. Like, I'm sure if I weighed this, it would probably be like, like 95 grams or something like that instead of 100, but so I barely touched the last skein. So I have quite a bit of this left, and the pattern that I already do have a pattern in mind for what I think I want to make with this. Isabella Clarke, who's also known as 100 Acre Wool, both on Instagram and YouTube, and I think Ravelry as well. But Isabella Clarke came out with a pattern around Christmas time called Through the Forest, and it's a really beautiful colorwork hat. It's just kind of like a basic like ribbed brim and then like a pom-pom on top, basic shaped hat, but it has this really beautiful like pine tree colorwork motif on it, and I think that would be pretty perfect to make with this. And I probably have the perfect amount of yarn for it also right here, to have the purple as the base color and then do the pine trees in the green. So it might be a companion piece to this sweater. However, I don't really wear hats a lot, so I might just knit it because I have the yarn for it and possibly gift it to somebody, I'm not sure. My best friend does live out in Indiana, where we both went to college, and it does get pretty chilly out there, so maybe if I make it, I might send it off to her as an early winter gift. I didn't make any moderations to the sweater at all, basically. I found that the crop length was perfectly how I wanted it. I loved the balloon sleeves. I pretty much loved like all of the design elements, so I didn't make any moderations at all. I knitted it exactly to pattern all the way down to the row count, so. And I'm very happy with the way it turned out, so I'm probably going to knit more of Teti's patterns in the future. Some of my mistakes, I wouldn't even call them mistakes, they're just kind of notes that happened on this sweater. But on some of the sleeve increases, is it this sleeve or the other sleeve? Oh, it's this sleeve. So in some of the sleeve increases, and it's only like one row, I think, on this particular sleeve, but the way that I increased it left a gap, which was completely my fault. Just the increase method that I used left just a tiny little hole, but I'm not too worried about it. And even when I finished it or when I completed it and knit past there and kind of realized that there's a little bit of gapping, I thought to myself, I'm like, you know, it's not superwash yarn. Maybe it'll just kind of like felt together and meld together, and it'll be all fine after blocking. And it still showed up after blocking, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm not too concerned about it. Like you can even see that it took me a while to find where that row actually was, so not concerned. The other thing with this pattern is, I can probably get it up to the camera too. On the neckline, on the front, both the front and the back, there's a little bit of gapping here, kind of near the very end of the neckline. And I'm not sure if that is due to the decreasing or the fact that I am on double pointed needles at this point. Not sure why that happened or if there's any real way for me to fix it aside from just like knitting tighter around there. I'm not sure if there's a fix, but once again, it's not something that I'm super concerned about. It does kind of get hidden a little bit with the crochet chain detail up here. So once again, not a deal breaker for me at all, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The only other note on this pattern that is less than ideal for me is that the bottom ribbing does kind of flare out a little bit, and I think that is just the nature of the pattern. I think it might also be partially because for the cuffs, you switch down pretty dramatically in terms of needle size. I think the cuffs are on like a size 2 or something, no, size 3 or something like that needle. So you're knitting with the DK yarn on like a size 3 needle, and so that helps with the ribbing plus the very dramatic decrease in stitches to get that tapered or cinched cuff. However, you don't do any of that with the bottom hem ribbing. The rib is in the same needle size as the rest of the body, and there's no decreases, and so it does feel like it flares out just a little bit. Not my ideal, but also, like I said, not a deal breaker for me. I'm very happy with how this project turned out. It fits really beautifully. And I mentioned this when I tried on like the half done sweater in the last episode, but I'm just super happy with the circular yoke. I think it's very flattering on me, and the neckline sits very well. There's short row shaping on this, which does make the neckline sit nice and like kind of a more tailored feeling fit. Very happy with this sweater. One interesting thing that I did not mention in the last episode, which I think I mentioned in episode 2, but just correcting myself, it is not a top-down circular yoke pattern like I had said previously. There is an option in the pattern to knit it top down. However, the pattern as written starts in the middle of the yoke, like I think right past the color work maybe, and then you knit up, then you decrease for the neckline, and then you pick up your provisional cast on, and then you knit down. So just correcting myself, my misspeaking on a previous episode. That's my Between Petals pullover. I'm not gonna stop wearing it anytime soon. I love this sweater. Moving on to my whips. The friend that I mentioned previously that I might end up giving that hat to if I do make it, I'm also working on something else for her. I shared this in the previous episode also, and I have a little bit more progress to share. This is a crochet pattern by Stitches and Burn. It is called the Wind Rises Corset Top. Let me just get my crochet hook out of here. That is one nice thing about crochet, is like you can pull out your last stitch and just like move your crochet hook around, as opposed to knitting needles. Like if your needles are occupied on something, they're just there until you're done. So I shared this front part previously, and this is pretty much the same. I just put the bow, I just strung the bow through there to reserve it. And I'm not completely done with the front. I believe after I seam everything together, I do have to do like a finishing edge that is like down the middle here that the bow can actually string through, but I just wanted to put the bow there just so I can visualize it, but then also to reserve the bow and make sure that I don't accidentally use it for anything else. So that's the front part. That much is still the same. The progress that I have to show you is on the back panel. So this is just very, very simple rectangular back panel, nothing fancy here. It's just using the same stitch motif that is on the blue part in the front panel. However, I think I'm gonna lose Yarn Chicken because I have I want to say like maybe 8 or 9 more rows of this to do, and this is all the yarn left that I'm working with. So I think I have to order some more, but yeah, luckily, because this is like a commercially produced yarn, hopefully the lots won't be too much of a difference from like ball to ball, or it's not even a cone, it's like a tube, from like tube to tube. But the yarn that I'm using for this is Circuloduna, which is a DK weight cotton yarn. And I'm not sure if I shared my dumpling bag on a previous episode or not, but my dumpling bag that I made that was a Purl Soho knit along many months ago, that was also made with Circuloduna. And so when I was working with that yarn, I loved working with that yarn. It just crocheted up super quickly, or knitted up super quickly when I was knitting the bag. And even while I was working with it, I was thinking to myself that it wouldn't be too bad of a choice of yarn for a garment. It's pretty sturdy, especially after blocking it did get a little softer. This is feeling a little bit rough right now, but I think after washing it out, it will get a little softer, just like my dumpling bag did. So yeah, so this is the rest of my progress on the Wind Rises crochet top. And probably gonna have to order more yarn, unfortunately. The pattern is made to measure, so it does not have graded sizing that I can share with you. I made size whatever. However, my friend did send me her measurements. She usually does wear around a size small-ish. And I at first purchased 2 skeins of the blue and then 1 skein of the cream that was on, of this cream color that was on the front panel. And I have quite a bit left over of the cream, and then, like I said, I'm gonna have to order more of the blue. but that's how much, that is how much yarn that I'm using for this. So I am making the open lace version. This pattern has two versions. There's an open lace and a closed lace. However, both have the ribbon detail. But I am making the open lace version. As always with Stitches and Burn patterns that I've made, the pattern is super well written. Bernadette does a really good job of including lots of pictures and lots of explanations and lots of like mathematical help with the pattern, since they are made to measure. And so you kind of have to do a lot of your own math when it comes to motifs and repeats and stuff like that. But Bernadette does a really good job. So the pattern is really well written. I definitely recommend making it if you want to make your own. Yeah, so that's my Wind Rises corset top. Also, if you haven't watched The Wind Rises, it is such a good movie. Like, my boyfriend and I watched it together way before I started making this. I feel like it was maybe like late summer, but we watched it together and I was just absolute sobbing. It's a real tearjerker, so be prepared for that, but it's a very, very good movie. I recommend watching it. Since I do have a lot of the cream yarn left, let me get the skein. So this is how much of the cream that I have left, and I'm going to be using a little bit more of it to do like the finishing on the front. But this is a very sizable skein. Like, I'd say this is probably like maybe a little less than 50 grams, but definitely enough that I can do something with it. And the pattern that I have in mind, which I'm obviously not going to start until I finish the top, so I make sure I don't lose the yarn chicken again. But the pattern that I have in mind is the, what's it called? It's called the Romanticist's Bandana by Meredith Campbell. And I learned about this pattern through an episode of High Fiber Knits, where she was talking about all the things that she made in 2023, and then she was talking about how she made quite a few bandanas during the summer. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Like, I think hair accessories are so cute, but I kind of don't wear hats a lot. Like, I think I mentioned that literally like a few minutes ago. I don't really wear hats a lot, so I'm not really much of a hat wearer. However, I think a bandana, especially for the summer, would be really nice, just because I hate hats, but I also hate having my hair in my face, especially during the summer. But I'm also kind of growing out my hair, and I would like to do something other than just putting it up in like a ponytail all the time, or like a lazy bun. And so I think having a bandana or a couple bandanas during the summer would be really nice for keeping my hair back and also looking like super cute and cottagecore-y. So thinking of making one of those before the summer. And I have ended up somehow with quite a few, like just less than 50 gram leftovers of like DK or sport weight cotton yarn. So if I end up liking the bandana that I make with this, then I might utilize a couple of those and make some more bandanas. But we'll see how it goes. I just think they're cute. Next up is my final whip, one of two. And I know I don't really have a whole lot going on, even though I'm making an episode right now, but you will understand once I show you how crazy stupid I've gone on this next project. I feel like after I finished all of my gift knits, which was like super like poly knitting for an extended period of time, also with the deadline, also with a huge blanket project in the middle of all that. And it's like all of that time spent knitting things for other people and like kind of being gatekept from my own personal projects made me so hungry to knit after that I just kind of latched on to whatever. I feel like all that time just made me like so desperate to finish all the things that I wanted to knit for myself. Like, I did the second sleeve of this so quickly because I was done with all of my other gift knits, and so I just kind of descended onto it. And just like that, I ended up kind of descending onto this pattern, and it was definitely an impulse cast on and kind of a stash buster. Like, I've had a sweater quantity of this yarn just kind of lying around, and I kind of didn't feel like knitting the pattern that I originally bought it for anymore. And so I found this pattern because I've been really craving some like intricate cable work. I love cables. I haven't done them in a while. And so I was just really craving cables, especially because they're kind of having a moment in the fashion scene right now. And so I found this pattern and I was like, you know what do I have to lose by just casting on something? And I was even trying to wait until after the new year, you know, just like, okay, clean your projects, take a little break. But I literally could not wait until then. And I casted this on December 29th and I'm filming this on January 18th. So from December 29th to January 18th, this is all the progress that I've made on this project. Okay. I hope I can show this like without flip-flopping all over the place. So here is all the crazy ends and progress and flaps and stuff that I have done. Here, can I hold it up like this? Will that work? That works. That's in frame. So this is The Botanist by Thea Coleman, who also goes by Baby Cocktails, which gave me a really funny email when I bought the pattern. It's a gorgeous all over cable texture, cable panel pattern going on. Oh God, it's everywhere. So let me show you the back part because the back really displays the cable motifs most prominently. Yeah, there we go. So, oh, it's so pretty. So you can see the cable motifs there. There is a center, this is the center of the back. So there's that center braid motif that is repeating 3 times, and then it's just got some simple like yarn over cables or like single twist, and then this really beautiful intricate cable panel here that has a seed stitch in the middle of it, or pardon me, has a moss stitch in the middle of it. And then the side panels are also moss stitch with a little bit of reverse stockinette right under the underarm. And then, so I am done with the back panel, and then now I've picked up for the right front, which is why I was like, I have to stop and like make a podcast episode to show off my progress before I end up just finishing this whole thing in like a crazy fever dream. So I've picked up for the right front right now, and you can see I'm almost done with the decreases here, and then I'll just be knitting straight to match the back panel and then picking up the other front panel. And then sleeves I believe are worked separate in flat and then seamed. So yeah, I don't know either. Like, just genuinely, I don't know either. And I even had like, I had planned out more or less like my winter knits and kind of what I wanted to do for this season, and this was nowhere on it. This was just like literally nowhere on it. And then in the meantime, while I was like, oh well, I'll buy yarn, but I have to make time to go to the store and all this stuff, I don't know, I just casted it on, and now it's been crazy. So yeah, this was nowhere in my plans, but I'm super enjoying the process. And I think part of why it's going so fast is because it's been like super cold here. And when I say super cold, I mean like California super cold, but it's been pretty cold for me at least. And so every time I sit down to work on it, I feel like I'm just going like crazy mode, because every time I sit and work on it, I'm doing all these like nice chunky, thick, you know, warm cables, this nice thick alpaca fabric, and I'm thinking to myself about how much I just want it to be done so I can wear it outside because it's cold and I want to wear it. So this pattern, written by Thea Coleman, and it was published in a 2018 lookbook for A Verb for Keeping Warm, which is a local yarn shop and yarn dyer duo company store front, but they're local, they're in Oakland, and I have yet to make my way over there to check out the store, because even though Oakland is really close, it's like I feel like going into the city, even though it's not that far, is like such a trek. It's like it's an adventure to go there just because of how hectic and crazy and everything is, like in the traffic and all that stuff. It's a trek, even though it's like if I could fly, I'd be there in an instant, but going by car, not very friendly. So I've yet to visit their store. I would really like to sometime soon. And I think that opportunity is going to come. This is a complete sidebar, by the way, but I think that opportunity is going to come up in March, because in mid to late March, I believe the dates are March 15th through March 28th or 27th or something like that. But there is an event happening if you live in the Bay Area called the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. If you haven't heard of it, it's this event that is being put on by like a group of local yarn stores that are all around the Bay Area. And so the purpose of the event is over the course of these days, you know, you visit all of the local yarn stores, and it's supposed to be kind of like a fun way to venture outside of your area and kind of make a trip out of it, visit yarn stores that you've never been to or that are like out of your way. And so I think during the yarn crawl week, I'm going to pay a visit to A Verb for Keeping Warm, because, you know, it's just an excuse to go, which is really fun. But you can check out them on Instagram and their website, Bay Area Yarn Crawl. I'll put the links down in the description to all their stuff, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. I know a lot of stores are going to be carrying like exclusive colorways or exclusive yarns to celebrate the yarn crawl, or for people to incentivize people to come out. I know a lot of people are going to be putting on like special classes and things like that, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited because I have not yet had the opportunity to go to any kind of like in-person yarn related event type thing. I missed Lambstown. I also missed Stitches before they closed down. And so I'm really excited for this. And if you're in the Bay Area, I recommend that you take the opportunity to support some of your local small businesses. Sidebar over. The yarn that I'm using for this is the main yarn is Knit Picks Upcycle Alpaca Worsted. And this is in the colorway Parchment. And then I'm holding that together with Jojo Land Harmony, which is a lace weight merino yarn, and that is in the colorway Rainbow. And so the couple notes on both of these yarns: one, I'm holding them together kind of to meet gauge. It was really weird. Like when I was knitting with just the alpaca worsted, I wasn't really hitting gauge. But then when I held it together, I was, and so I was like, you know what, it's fine. It'll be a little bit chunkier, but it'll use up two of the yarns in my stash that I don't think I would use unless I use them together anyway. So it works out, it's fine. But the Knit Picks Upcycle, you probably remember in a previous episode, I used the sport weight of this yarn to knit a skirt. That was the Moonlight skirt by Hazy Moon. And I love that skirt, and the pattern's really great. Everything is really great. However, I kind of regret my yarn choice because the yarn that I use is really scratchy. And so the blend of Knit Picks Upcycle Alpaca is alpaca. It's 30% alpaca, 30% wool, and then I think the rest is all acrylic. That might be correct. But it's all recycled fibers. It's made from the leftovers of what their factory would otherwise just throw away, like the scraps of yarn and everything that's left over from yarn production that would otherwise just be going in a landfill. They found a way to turn that into a new recycled yarn, and that is what upcycle alpaca is. And that also means that the colorways are limited edition. That also means that the colorways that they have, all of them are a little bit different in terms of like texture and hand feel and all these things. Just because the nature of the yarn is it is made from recycled materials, and so they can't always control exactly what they're going to get. The yarn that I used for the skirt was pretty scratchy, and I'm not sure if that was the colorway or if that was the sport version of upcycle alpaca, or kind of what was going on there, but it's really kind of uncomfortable to wear next to skin. I can put up with it if I'm going somewhere for like a couple hours, or if I'm going to work, I'm not moving around so much. So it's not unbearable, but it does make me a little resistant to wearing my skirt, unfortunately. However, what's really interesting, and I was worried that I would have the same experience with this because I bought them at the same time, so I didn't know that that would be an issue when I bought this yarn. And so knowing that the sport weight that I had was scratchy, I decided to use this for a cardigan so that it wouldn't be next to skin. So that way if it was also scratchy, it wouldn't be too much of a deal. I'd be wearing something under it anyway. However, it's pretty soft, and like, I'm not sure if that has anything to do with holding it with a strand of merino, so there's some more merino in there. However, like, even feeling the ball by itself, like the ball feels softer than the sport weight ball did. So I don't know, it could just be a quirk of the yarn because, like I said, they're all recycled, and on the website even people report having a better experience with the parchment colorway. So it could just be the colorway. The fact that it's kind of so light and it's this nice like grayish color could mean that, you know, there's less pokey, I don't know, like there's less pokey acrylic bits or something. I don't even know if that's a thing, but the fact of the matter is that it is softer, and it's working up into a really nice, beautiful and thick fabric, which I'm finding very enjoyable. It's such an enjoyable knit, which, I mean, I'm sure you can tell obviously by how much progress I've made on it already, but I'm just having so much fun with it. So I will keep you updated on my progress as it goes. The thing about the Jojo Land Harmony, which is interesting, I got it off of like super sale, which is why I bought it, and I always intended to hold it specifically with this yarn, this parchment yarn. And I expected that the way that the color was, that it would be more rainbow than it is. But I'm not sure if you can tell in the camera. The camera might pick it up better, or it might not, I'm not sure. But it's kind of a little more stripy than I had pictured in my mind when I planned this out. And I think it's mostly just that the blue fiber stands out against the parchment color more than like the yellow fibers or the pink fibers, or it could just be that the particular skein that I'm using is kind of more blue heavy. I'm not sure, but either way, other than that, it is kind of working up the way I had imagined, where the color changes are just very subtle, which is what I had hoped for, just kind of like a little subtle touch of color and an otherwise like grayish-ish garment. But I'm finding it very fun. So yeah. Other notes on this pattern, I am modifying it quite a bit, so if something goes wrong, I'm not at all blaming Thea Coleman, who designed this pattern, because I'm deviating quite a bit from her design. However, the pattern also says that it's intended to be quite customizable as long as you do it in certain areas. So some of the changes I've made, I cropped it quite a bit. I've cropped it, I think, like 4 inches total from the total length, the total body length. Because like I said, I'm finding that I like cropped garments more, and in the pictures of the finished object or the finished project, it shows that it's kind of hitting like at her hip or like at her butt area, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think I shared earlier my pignon pullover also kind of hits at that area. I find it very awkward and I don't like it. So I've cropped it quite a bit, but then also what I've done, because I have my body measurements are very like that. And so what I've also done is, in addition to the crop, I've increased the armhole depth quite a bit. I think in total, I think I've increased it like 2 or 3 inches. So I've increased the armhole depth, which means that I'm going to have to increase the sleeve width, but I haven't done the math for that yet. I'm kind of like, okay, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I am gonna have to make definitely some sleeve modifications. But so far, at least with the body, it looks like it's all coming together quite well. So As long as I modify the sleeve width, I think I should be okay. But if it goes wrong, I'm not blaming Thea Coleman. This is entirely on me. One of the other reasons why I decided to crop it so much is because I'm mimicking a bit this Madewell cardigan. It's like so it's by Madewell. I love Madewell. That's probably the #1 clothing company that I shop with when I'm not making my own clothes. I love Madewell. However, like their sweater lineup this year has made me go, I could do that. And so I've been kind of doing that. But one of the things on their website that's kind of had a chokehold on me is this really cute cable knit cropped cardigan sweater. And it's looking at the product photos, it looks like a simplified version of a cable like this. So it's a very simple kind of like diamond cable. And so this feels almost like a kicked up version of that. However, I really like the crop length on that sweater and kind of like the boxiness of it. And so I'm trying to mimic that just a little bit. I know that it won't be perfect, but that's kind of the inspiration look that I'm going with. So up next, we have my yarn acquisitions, so Christmas was not that long ago, and one of my Christmas gifts that I received was a super generous gift card to a local yarn store in the area. And so my boyfriend and I went, and I went crazy. But I went crazy, but within reason. Usually when I'm knitting, I try to at least kind of go for a budget option unless I'm treating myself. Like I definitely treated myself with this sweater. I bought yarn that was like a little bit higher price range than I would usually buy. But I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to graduate and make something that's a real treat for myself. So I did that. But a couple things. I have never worked with mohair before, and I've always been dying to try, but you know, I've always been nervous about making a full garment and also making like a next to skin garment in mohair, just in case I find it itchy, because I've never worked with it before. I wouldn't know, and I'm scared of the full commitment of making like a huge garment with mohair and then finding out that I hate it. So I took this as an opportunity to splurge a little bit, to try mohair and to spoil myself with some really nice yarn that I wouldn't usually buy. And so I ended up with these. First is this beautiful merino DK yarn from La Bien Amie. I don't speak French, but this beautiful yarn from La Bien Amie. So this is their merino DK, which is superwash merino, and it's in the colorway Lannister, which I think is a Game of Thrones reference, but I've never watched or read Game of Thrones, even though everybody keeps telling me to. So I don't know, like I don't know anything. Don't come at me in the comments. However, it's such a gorgeous color. I couldn't say no, and it's so. Let me see if I can get it in the. If I block my eye, maybe. Yeah. So there we go. So it's this beautiful tonal like wine red burgundy. And I love tonals. Like throughout the course of my knitting journey, I've kind of had to learn like what hand dyes styles I like and which ones I don't. Not a huge fan of self-striping, not a huge fan of like really, or like, what would you call that? Like dipped? I don't know how they make it, but the kind of yarn that has like big blocks of color that pulls and flashes really easily. I don't really like that. I have found that I'm really drawn to tonals and I'm really drawn to speckles. And so I think going forward, I'm gonna try and keep that in mind and like keep my purchasing habits within those, just so that I don't end up with something that I never use or don't like. This is so beautiful. This is really, really beautiful. And then I got to pair with it. It dropped on the floor, so give me a second. So I purchased to pair with it the Isayer Silk Mohair. And this is a very popular choice. I've heard a lot of people say that this is probably the best mohair on the market, or among the best mohair on the market. And so I figured, you know, if I'm gonna try mohair, I might as well get like the best stuff so that I'm not like trying it with a really cheap, crappy mohair and then hating it and basing my opinion off of that. I'd rather go big or go home, especially since I had like this really nice gift card to play around with. So this is their Sayers silk mohair in the the color is 69, and I'm being super mature about it, I promise. But Sayer, all of their colorways are just numbered, and so I might be playing chicken a little bit with the mohair just because I only got 3 skeins, so I'll see if that's enough or not. And if it's not, I'll send my boyfriend back to the yarn store to pick some up for me because he lives closer to it than I do. But because of that, I was looking on the ball band to see what color it was, and I saw that it was 69, and I promise I'm being super mature about it. But I think that these will be a nice pair for each other. Because the silk mohair, I think it'll soften the red a little bit, but it won't hide it, which I'm really excited to try. So the pattern that I have in mind for these is the Laura vest by Irene Lynn. I was thinking of doing a vest, one, because both of these yarns are pretty expensive, and so I didn't want to buy more than that if I didn't have to. And so, yeah, so I'm planning on making this vest also partially because if I find that I don't like the mohair, it'll be okay because it'll be a vest. So one, it won't be too hot, and two, it will probably not be worn next to skin. So I'll be able to try the mohair, see if I like it, but it's one less like investment, and two, I can totally wear it layered over something, so I can still get wear out of it even if I don't really like having the mohair next to skin. So that's what I have for these. I'm also planning to cast that on in like more of late winter because it is a vest, so I feel like it'll be much easier, much nicer and more enjoyable to carry a vest pattern over into the spring than some of the other pullovers and long sleeve cardigans that I still have planned to knit in the winter. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what I do here, give this video a like and please consider subscribing to my channel. It helps me so much more than you know. You can also follow me on Instagram at yarnyheart for more updates. Until next time, take care and I'll see you soon. Bye!